Hey, what's up, everybody? Jump Rope to Freedom. Welcome back to the Jump Rope Veteran Podcast. This is episode 10. Episode 10 features Ken Lane, the owner and operator of thekenlane.com, a blog about intentional living and minimalism. Ken and I connected via the Jump Rope Veteran YouTube channel. He actually helped me figure out how to get this podcast on Google, Apple, and the other podcast platforms that you see the podcast on now. So much respect and thanks to Ken for doing that. Ken is also a cancer survivor. He talks a lot about his bout with cancer in this episode, and he has used jump rope to lose a whole lot of weight and to get control of his physical health and his physical fitness. So with that being said, let's get into it.
All right, we're rolling. Ken, thank you very much for joining on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I also appreciate you helping me put this podcast on the platforms because I had no idea how to do that. And that was very awesome and kind of you. So thank you for joining. I really appreciate it.
Well, that was completely selfish of me because I just wanted to hear the podcast while I skip. And that was the easiest way to go about it, was just to go, hey, man, let's get this going in Apple Podcasts or whatever. That was really self-serving.
No, either way, man, it was a nice kind gesture, and I really appreciate your help on that, man. So we'll go ahead and get into it. The first thing I'd like to know, and I'm sure everyone else watching would like to know, is how did you get your start with jump rope?
Well, I know it doesn't quite count as I bet a lot of people on the podcast are like, well, when I was a little kid, I started when I was a little kid. And that was the same with me. If you're a kid in the 90s and you went to like a public elementary school, you probably had a jump rope for heart, knocking down the doors, trying to get kids skipping rope at the time. I don't know if they're still doing that or not. I hope so.
Yeah.
But that's where I got my first start in jumping rope. I was a pretty skinny kid. I had a pretty decent sense of rhythm. So I enjoyed it quite a bit at the time. I didn't like join any teams or anything, but I enjoyed doing it. And I felt pretty cool because I could do like a couple double unders at the time. Not a lot of kids at my school were able to do that. I mean, it wasn't like probably really terrible form. Probably couldn't do them consistently, but so that was kind of a thing. But I know a lot of your podcast listeners are probably like, who the heck is this guy? Like he doesn't have a jump rope YouTube channel, and he doesn't have even a jump rope blog. I've been thinking about that, but I'm kind of more of a intentional living blogger, writer. I've done a couple books. I do a little podcast, and I'm really not probably the usual guy on your podcast because I didn't come from a place of athleticism. I was kind of raised in I was always a skinny guy, so I didn't really feel the need to have to work out and all that. But as the years went by and it became a little more sedentary, that for a long time I was kind of complacent in that. And whenever I would meet someone who was like, I'm just not myself if I don't get my 5 miles in every morning, I always felt like, dude, shut up. Like,
yeah, I know, right?
Would be nice, but I was never a runner or anything. Like, I was a skateboarder. Did competitions and stuff like that back in the day, did a little BMX riding, but kind of dropped out of that when a lot of people do, when they start driving when they're 16 or whatever.
Yeah.
But as the years went by, stuff happened. In 2017, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And I mean, that's a whole other story we can kind of get into.
Yeah.
But how that led to jump rope. I know it sounds like a real backwards, weird path. I had a lot of anxiety following that, because whenever you get a cancer diagnosis, you just feel like, okay, my body's out to get me. And I wanted to get really deep into meditation because meditation seemed like something to ease anxiety. And oddly enough, I was watching a YouTube video. There's so many meditation YouTube videos, but one was on a channel called Charisma on Demand. And this guy was talking about meditation and how he liked to meditate. And in the middle of the video, he started talking about, I've actually found that meditation helps me get through really arduous jump rope workouts. You know,
Wow.
when I'm really trying to get to the end, I can lean into the pain or the exhaustion or the motion of the rope or something like that, and being present and all of that is what helps me get through. At that time, I was like, hey, that sounds cool, but I actually completely lost track of what he was talking about because I was going, hold on a second, people jump rope for fun, like
Yeah.
as an exercise. And I just thought that was something like little girls and boxers did, you know.
Hmm.
And I'm sure that the whole video was very good and informative on meditation, but I didn't really hear it because I was too busy on Amazon looking at jump ropes.
Yeah.
I was like ready to get started.
Oh yeah.
And I was just super excited to, and it wasn't even about exercise at that time. It was about doing something that it looked fun. Like he was doing like boxer skips and side stuff and crossovers and stuff like that. And to me, it looked fun. And at the time, I was about 40 pounds heavier. I had just quit smoking. I was coming off of a surgery for testicular cancer. And all of a sudden, I'm ordering a jump rope. And I, I don't know what to tell you. I was completely not ready for it, so much to the fact that when the jump rope arrived and I wanted to try it out, I had like casual sneakers, not athletic shoes.
Yeah.
I had I didn't have athletic shorts. I was like in my driveway in swim trunks. Kind of embarrassing actually when I think about it now. And I just came back to it because it looked fun, and you know, it was tough initially, a lot harder than I thought, because you know when you watch
Sure.
these jump rope guys on YouTube videos, they make it look so effortless.
I know
I mean, this guy jump rope veteran, he just makes it look so easy
it.
and and
Oh, no.
effortless.
No,
Tor-
not me. All the other people. Yeah, I still
no,
got a lot of work to do, man.
no way, man. You were one of the ones who popped up there, and uh, what was it? The Way of the Jump Rope, Andrew, and
Yeah.
uh, Rush Athletics and the jump rope dudes. They all make it look so easy.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I was in my driveway just gasping for air, wondering why it wasn't so. It's like, was there someone on my back? Like, I don't even understand what was going. But as I went consistently, I was able to go longer, and I was able to do more tricks, and I was able to have more endurance, and it became a lot more fun as I went, to where I would kind of almost daydream about it at work. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to see what I can do to basically compete against the shadow in the driveway, you know,
Sure, sure.
see how much longer I can run, skip, how I can run with the jump ropes, pretty much.
Yeah, that's what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. But it didn't even really register as exercise. It was more like, oh, this is another life challenge. I want to see what I can do. I want to see how much longer I can go, how many more reps I can get in, how many more tricks I can learn. But it's always been more about fun than exercise to me. And, you know, losing about 40 pounds and being able to breathe is just like a side effect. So
Yeah, dude, that's important. What you're saying about fun versus looking at it as a chore, that's real important. A lot of people just immediately view exercise as something like a task, and I think that thinking in and of itself can be harmful, because if you're looking at it like work or a task, people work all day, and they don't want to work any more than the 9 to 5. Most people have a regular 9 to 5, and your ability to do that and the fact that it's fun for you, I'm sure that had a lot to do with the success that you've had so far.
yeah, the fun aspect, I always do talk to my friends who are runners. There's some that are like really into running, but others treat running like this is the price I have to pay in order to have the beer or to
Yeah.
have the pretzels or to have the, you know, it's another, you know, you take out the trash, you unload the dishwasher, you run, you know. And so jump rope, it's not something that I have to do. It's something that I get to do. But nowadays it's something that I have to do to almost kind of feel normal. But it's a good thing, I guess.
Yeah. That's awesome. I've heard you said something real important, that changing changing the way that you go about it with your words. So saying it's instead of have to do, get to do.
Mhm.
That's something that I've heard quite a few times that can change your mindset towards things, that can make a lot of difference. I'm sure that had a lot to do with the success you've had with your health and with your weight loss also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what was really odd about the first weight loss was at first I was actually kind of thinking about it because I noticed that the scale was going down, 240, 235, 220. It was going down and I was excited. And I was just thinking in my mind, like, man, it's going to be so awesome whenever I get right below that 200 mark for the first time since like high school.
Yeah.
But when that day came and went, I didn't even, I barely noticed it.
Yeah.
Because it didn't come, it was no longer about, I actually think I wrote a blog about this somewhere. It's not about the scale anymore. It's just about the life.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's scales, numbers. It doesn't really matter. It's how you feel. It's how you move. So, I guess you can use some metrics to keep yourself in check. Like Mr. Rogers used to do, Mr. Fred Rogers, the Will You Be My Neighbor? He always he weighed 143 pounds his whole adult life. He would weigh himself every day and it said 143 pounds.
Wow.
And I'm like, because he'd swim every day.
Yeah.
He was in pretty good health, but I haven't weighed myself in a long time just because I know I kind of go by how I feel. And what was the last time I skipped? And I usually do about 6 days a week, just depending. But now, I just gauge it by how I feel. Am I having fun? That's kind of how I go about it these days.
Man, that's awesome. And so when you first started, how long did it take to where you were able to get to your goal? So if you started with maybe 5 minutes a day, but you wanted to get, I think we had talked earlier and you said now your goal was to get at about 25-minute workouts. How long did it take to where you had the cardio, the stamina, and the skill set to be able to get to the point where you're at now?
Well, for a long time, I would space out, I don't know, rounds is what you might call them.
Yeah.
At first, it was pitiful. It was like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. And then it was like a minute on, 30 seconds off, and then 2 minutes on, 30 seconds off. And I think once I actually got my boxer skip dialed, I began to be like, I can go 10 minutes, no problem. And then it got to go like, well, do I need to even stop? And so it took about, I'd say, a year to a year and a half before I could get to 25, 30 minutes without taking any breaks.
Wow. And that's 25 minutes of straight jumping, no side swings or anything, just jumping over the rope.
Just jumping.
Wow.
Boxer skip is my favorite thing you can do with a rope. Just because I guess I approach it like running, I guess, because I can kind of go, I kind of like to go into my mind while I'm doing that. And just, I'm either, listening to the Jump Rope Veteran podcast in a sec. I'll probably get in there, but or just thinking of, I found myself not really thinking about anything and almost kind of just meditating on something like that guy was saying earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I've really gotten into meditation since then. And I can see how that corresponds with the mindset of when you're into an intense athletic thing like skipping rope.
Yeah. You're right about that. The meditation is, we can talk about that one later on, because that's a key element of it, the rhythm that you get with the rope and all that. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about was jump ropes that you have right now and what you started with and what you currently have. What does your lineup look like?
What I started with was, it's a very popular rope on Amazon, I think. It's like $10. It has like kind of a foamy grip with bearings in it and a steel cable that's coated. My problem is that I was sweating so much that I was rusting out the bearings in the handle.
Yeah.
And I wasn't skipping on a mat at the time. So the cable got so worn out and I would jump at night a lot of the time. And I was making sparks in the driveway with the steel rope.
Nice. Yep.
It
Yep.
looks cool, but you're really just wearing out your rope.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Yeah.
The first ropes that I really liked, actually I got mine hanging up. Is just like these long handled 5mm PVC, simple, no real bearing in it, I don't think. These are the jumprope.net. They don't pay me to talk about them, but that's a big shout out to them. I have 4 ropes right now. This one I haven't used in a while, just because I switched over to a 5mm 6-inch handle with like bicycle handle tape on it.
Yeah.
For a good grip, because I'm a sweaty dude.
Man, I'm right there with you, man. Oof.
I can't hold on to them. They'd slip out. One time, if you taps your foot the slightest bit, if you have that nice gentle grip on it, it's gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, 5mm 6-inch handle. I think this is electrical tape on either side, keeping it in place. Size it up with some knots. To a certain degree. My other yellow one, gosh, I didn't cut it down at all. I just used knots, so it's just filled with knots. And they feel great when you hit yourself with them. So
I can imagine. I've been through that.
It's like a cat of nine tails.
Yeah. It's rough, man. Oof.
Well, I don't get into too many tricks, so I don't actually snap myself that often. Maybe that's why. I don't know. But man, one of my favorite one now is the weighted Muay Thai training rope from Elite SRS. You can get that from jumpropes.net.
Yeah.
And it has been kicking my butt, but like in the best way.
That's a good rope. Yeah.
It's a behemoth. It is. It's like jumping with a garden hose full of concrete or something.
I know it. That rope is a lot different than other heavy ropes. I mean, I have the Crossrope 1 pound, and that's a good rope, but you can control it a lot better. That rope, I have one of those as well. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to control, but it's honestly a good thing because it's harder to control, which means you need to concentrate more on making sure you don't trip. So it's actually a benefit at the end of the day. At least that's the way I see it.
I've found that I have to switch up however I'm jumping with it. If I go out too broad with it, you're working one set of muscles. And if you wear those out and then you bring them in, and then you're basically just doing bicep curls just to keep the thing in check. And if you try and hold it with your thumb on top, that's a great way to wear out your hands. I found that my grip strength has gotten so much tighter from weighted ropes, because you just got to manage the damn thing, like really just keep a hold of it. But I'm not even really one to, last rope, 3mm PVC, very short, as short as I can get it without hitting myself. And this one is exclusively for jumping inside my house. Okay. For when it's terrible weather, or we had sub-zero temperatures here for like a couple months back, and I would skip usually right back here on the hardwood floor, not on the rug, just trying my hardest not to hit ceiling fans and bookshelves and doorknobs, and sometimes being successful with that. But it would turn into a sweat lodge in here, because just trying that. But I'm not really a big gear guy. I understand there's a lot of awesome, cool jump rope technologies out there, cross rope, and I know Rush Athletics he's always coming up with cool stuff and all these different things. And I'll try them out eventually one day, whenever I've completely snapped everything I got. But I really just like the simple stuff, really cheap. I rarely don't spend more than $10 on a rope.
Sure.
So
that goes. We were talking. Oh, go ahead. My fault.
Well, I was just gonna say I'm probably just gonna replace the PVC once these break. Keep the handles. It's a really cheap way to go.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. Those handles will hold up for a long time. They will. So we talked about in our preliminary call. We were talking about your minimalist lifestyle, and walk me through how you came to minimalism, and then in your words, how that relates to jump rope.
Well, for a long time, I would bounce around where I lived in my 20s or whatever. And each time I would just kind of accumulate more stuff as I went.
Mhm.
And most of the stuff, if I can speak probably for a lot of people when I go, if you went into your closet, you have that problem sometimes in the morning where you open it up and you're like, it's stuffed to the brim, but you're like, I don't have anything to wear.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely, man.
Like that's
uh,
like what a weird kind of first world problem to have.
yeah, yeah.
And I was over at a friend's house. Uh, he's my best friend, the buddy that I played in a band with for over a decade. And he had lived in this one bedroom apartment, and he got a cool job as a park ranger at a Civil War battlefield, which he is an American history. He has his master's in American history. So being a park ranger at a Civil War battlefield was like his dream job. But at the time, they hooked him up with the house that was on the grounds. It was a 3-bedroom house, and he went from a 1-bedroom apartment to a 3-bedroom house. And when he moved in, it was so empty that like you could hear your voice reverberating off the walls.
Oh,
He had
wow.
like his kayak in the kitchen because that he's kind of a schlub. But my first like materialist instinct was to be like, man, we got to get you some furniture. We got to get you some stuff on the walls. And he just looked at me and goes, why?
Great
And
question.
in that moment, I was so jealous of him
Yeah.
because he had, I don't know, 5 t-shirts that he would hang up, 3 pairs of pants, 2 pairs of shoes, just enough furniture for him. He's like, why do I need so much more stuff? And I was really just thinking about my own existence. And I'm like, man, I got so much stuff that is taking up so much real estate, not only in my house, but in my mind,
Right.
in my closet, but also in my subconscious. And I'm like, man, there's no real reason to have so much stuff. And I'd started getting rid of a lot of things that I owned that uh, my wife and I kind of did the Marie Kondo KonMari method of, you pick something up and you go, does this spark joy? And if it doesn't, just get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal, and you probably won't miss it. At first, it might be hard because you're also like, well, I might use that one day, but nowadays in this kind of first world mentality, if you truly needed something like that again, you're able to get it again.
Yeah.
But in all likelihood, you're probably not,
Mm.
and it's probably just taking up space in your life. So when we moved to the house we're in now, last October, I mean, I had been kind of downgrading since then, but got rid of, I'm going to say 80% of my clothes. I actually had a bunch of other jump ropes too, and I got rid of those. Just the ones I wasn't using. I'm like, if I'm not using them, I don't need to keep them.
Yeah.
And man, I've just noticed like an immense pressure being let off. But the thing about it too is that you just getting rid of the stuff is not going to help if you still have the I need to go buy stuff mentality,
Yeah.
or else you're just going to end up buying more stuff all over again. And so I had started setting rules for myself. If I wanted something, I'd open up my Google Calendar and a month out, I'd put like that item and be like, do you still want this? And usually you'd come around a month and you're like, no, don't really. It was going to be an impulse buy.
That is a great idea. Awesome.
Yeah.
I had to interrupt just to say that's a great idea I'm going to put, but please continue.
No.
Yeah.
That's also what like Amazon lists are for, I guess. Half the time you'll be going through, get an impulse buy. Yeah, that's cool. I'll put it on my list. I'll put the link to it. I'll actually grab the Amazon link and I'll put it in that calendar issue or instance on Google Calendar or Apple, whatever. And man, I'm going to say most of the time you're going to come around to it and go, I don't even want that anymore. Like I don't need it.
Exactly
How that comes back to jump rope, I think how minimalism would translate to jump rope to me is that it's also one of the most minimalist athletic activities anyone can encounter short of running, even though running sometimes isn't either. I mean, people throw a lot of gear down on running.
Yeah.
Jump rope, you don't need a gym. You don't need shoes if you don't want them. Just need a rope and a spot on, the size of 3x3, something maybe. And you're in business. You can do it however you want. You can do it for as long as you want. You don't have to join a class. And YouTube has all the videos you could ever need for jump rope. So to me, it's the perfect minimalist exercise and fun way of getting your heart rate up and getting to breathe heavy and all that. I say get to breathe heavy, not have to breathe heavy.
The important frame. Yeah, I agree with you on that though. It's when you're talking about your friend's house, it reminded me of Parkinson's law, where if you make more, it says I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's the law that says if you make more money, you're going to spend more. Or if you have more time to do a project, you're going to take all that time rather than setting a deadline. And then if you have all this space in your house, well, then the default reaction is to just go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff to fill it.
And we let lifestyle creep kick in too. You get that raise. Oh, now I can buy that new car. And then you go, did I need a new car? Like, and who am I impressing with this new car? I know new cars are nice to have and they're nice to buy and it feels good. Personally, I'm more of the beater mentality. I love my beater car. It's paid off. I can work on it myself sometimes. But I know that I won't get that car payment and it impresses me. And that's all that matters. Because most of the people you're trying to impress with a car at a stoplight, you're never going to see them again in your whole life.
Yeah, exactly. And the people whose opinions matter, they're not going to judge you on how much stuff you have or whether you have a nice car or not. And if they do, then probably shouldn't be hanging out with them anyway.
No, the fact that I was jealous of my friend for not having a lot of stuff in a house was like, I was more impressed by his lack of stuff. But that also ties back into the other end of minimalism. Over time, when you get rid of stuff and you don't replace it, you need to make sure that you're not focused on stuff still. Because actually, whenever we started talking originally about minimalism, because you had mentioned like, oh yeah, I saw that you wrote some blogs and even part of a book on minimalism. I go, oh yeah, I totally forgot about that because it wasn't a part of my life anymore. Not front and center anyways. I wasn't every day blogging about like, I don't have very many things and bragging about it because it's not. That's almost just as annoying as someone who's putting up the haul videos or something like that, which more power to people who do haul videos. I never understood it. I went to the store and here's everything I bought. And they even do it with groceries. I'm like, okay, that's celebrated materialism, but I think it's kind of a little goofy.
Yeah, it is strange, but you're right about making sure it doesn't become an unhealthy obsession on the other side.
Yeah, I think it can still materialism.
It is. It's just kind of on the other end of the spectrum.
Yep.
Yeah, man. So the cancer you were talking about, your bout with cancer. What?
Yeah,
I've known people who have had cancer, but I've never really talked to them about it. So what is it? What is that like to go through that, and how do you maintain the mental toughness to, if that's even what it was, to walk yourself and get through that stage in your life?
Well, for a while, I feel immensely blessed that I was diagnosed with stage 1, and I'm going to say like stage 0.5 testicular cancer. Testicular cancer is the most prevalent cancer in men the ages to about 15 to 35. Good news is that it's also these days virtually curable if caught early enough. If not caught early enough, it can definitely be fatal. But if caught early enough, there's new treatments. It's very treatable. I mean, look at Lance Armstrong. He had, I can't remember which stage he had, stage 4, I think. I mean, it was all the way up in his brain, full of his lungs, everything. Treated it, went on to win how many Tour de France's, you know, with the help of some interesting performance enhancing things. But, you know, being one testicle short is not the aerodynamics he needed to win the Tour de France. But I was already kind of, I was very aware of my own body and how things go. I was a little bit of a hypochondriac back in the day. And I noticed that, way back in the day, I heard a song on YouTube that it was called "Do Your Testicles Feel Okay?" And it was to the tune of "Do Your Ears Hang Low?" And it was a very successful campaign about testicular cancer awareness. And they're talking about, like, do they feel different? Does one feel bigger? I need to find the song. It's pretty hilarious. Like, they played up the comedic element, but it stuck with me. And it taught you how to do a self-exam in the shower, which every guy should do once a month. I usually say on the 2nd of the month, because, you know, you got 2 of those things. Just remember it. 2nd of the month, roll it between your finger and your thumb and go, is there any bumps? Is it bigger than it used to be? Is it harder than it used to be? Is it whatever? If anything's weird, just go see your doctor. It's not, it's scary to think about because it's the C word, but it's ultimately it's very treatable. I noticed one day that a long time ago, before all this, that one of mine was bigger than the other. And I went to my doctor about something else, but I mentioned it to him. And he goes, well, yeah, that's usual. Most guys, it's one's bigger than the other. That's not a big deal. So years later, I noticed, okay, now they're the same size. One that was smaller before is now the same. It's the same size as the other one. And I brought it up to my doctor, and he actually was like, I don't really sense anything or see anything that's weird just upon physical examination. But because you said that this one used to be smaller and it's now the same size, I'm gonna send you to go get a sonogram.
Good for him for doing that.
Yeah. Sonogram, the same as, you know, when you're pregnant with the jelly on the belly.
Yeah.
Except it was on different part. So it's a little, you know, I think I was cracking a lot of jokes during that and being like, is it a boy? Is it a girl? You know?
Oh man.
You have to laugh during those times.
Yeah.
But I remember I was at work. I got a call from my primary care, and he was, I can't remember exactly if he was trying to sound chill or not, but he was like, okay, so I got your sonogram results back from the radiologist. There's definitely a mass in there. Could be cancer. And like, whenever he said that, it was like somebody stomped the delay pedal, you know, for guitar. Cancer.
Yeah.
It's like all I heard, cancer.
Jeez.
And I was, you know, 28 years old, 27 years old.
Oh man.
And just had been married 3 years, something like that. But he goes, but good news is that this is, even if it is cancer, it's very highly treatable. Even if it is, it seems like we caught it really early. So I went into a urologist, and he said, you know, we can't be sure if it's cancer or not, because you don't really want to do a biopsy with testicular cancer, because, well, for one, by the time you cut into it, that testicle is no longer functional at all anymore. Like, you've already cut it to pieces. It's not worth it. And if we do cut into what is cancer, that can spread it to the bloodstream, and then all of a sudden you got it everywhere.
Oh,
so what we need to do is what's called an orchiectomy, which is the removal of the testicle. And he said it's a pretty standard procedure. He's like, I do like 100 of them a year.
Jeez.
Wow. They make an incision up, like where you have a hernia operation or a appendectomy kind of area, and they kind of crane game down in and remove that. And he goes, but good luck. Not good luck. Good news. You only really need one testicle you're totally fine with one. It's going to create enough testosterone. You're still going to be able to have kids and all that kind of stuff. So went in for surgery, had that removed, was out for like a week. I mean, it was probably about as bad as having an appendectomy.
Okay.
I mean, I had a couple moments where my cat jumped off my lap once, and I was like, ugh, you know. But it was a surgery. I was only out of work for a week. Went back to work after that, and had the results there too. And he was like, okay, it did test positive for cancer, but it was also, we need to do scans for you. You're going to have to come back, and you're in remission, so you need to come back for scans so we make sure that it hasn't spread anywhere else in your body. Usually it goes up the lymph nodes, and then from lymph nodes it can go into other organs like the liver and the kidneys, I believe, and then it goes into the lungs, and then it can just ride those lymph nodes up into your brain if that's like worst case scenario if it spreads that much. And this is usually something that's been someone at this point, a lot was going wrong downstairs and you weren't saying anything usually. Yeah. And it's so sad because a lot of dudes won't speak up. They, you know, they're macho. They're, you know, yeah, there's something wrong with me, or I don't want to go to a doctor. It's kind of embarrassing because it's your testicles. You know, I'm like, dude, it's not embarrassing if it's going to save your life. So
yeah, well said.
Yeah. And it's not, I mean, that's why that's why you'll notice if you look up a lot of the testicular cancer awareness campaigns, they kind of play up the fact that it's funny, that it's balls, that it's, you know. So I've been in remission and under surveillance for 4 years, almost 5. I'm pretty much out of the woods. They did find a nodule on my lung in one of the scans, but they said they think that was completely unrelated and it's almost completely benign, like something almost like having a mole. But they're like, we want to keep an eye on it, make sure, you know. But at this point, he's like, I think you're out of the woods. I'm downgrading you from full CT scans every year to just lower CT scans, chest x-rays, because it tends to go into there. But yeah, I still do have quite a bit of anxiety whenever when scan time comes up every year. When I'm like, I got to scan in a week, I get the results a week later. And I do get anxiety about that. They call it scanxiety in the cancer community.
Scanxiety, like, wow, yeah.
Because if you talk to anyone who's had cancer in remission, you could be years out from whenever you get the clean bill of health. When you get that, when you go in for scans, you're just like, all the emotions come back, all the, you know, has it come back? I don't know, you know, blah, blah, blah. I have noticed that jump rope though, it's such a powerful tool, and fitness in general, for people that aren't involved in fitness, jump rope is such a powerful tool for freeing yourself of a lot of anxiety, because you can just put a lot of that angst and that emotion and that the negative feelings into something physical, you know, getting your heart rate up, sweating, just really, I don't know. And I've heard of a lot of people using it for depression too. I haven't experienced depression myself, but I've heard for a lot of depressives, the difference between a depressed day and a not depressed day or a better day is, did I work out that day? Did I exercise that day? Yeah. And if they hadn't put in 10 minutes of intense exercise, a lot of the time, there was one of my favorite comedians, Gary Goldman. He had heavy duty depression, like super, super heavy duty depression, to the point where he actually had the electroconvulsive treatment, you know, the stuff that you see and you shock your brain. Nowadays they do it. They actually put you under and do that in a controlled atmosphere. It's not like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest like they used to do.
Yeah.
But he's like, man, exercise is like, he's like, it almost saved my life. Like if I exercise every day, I can keep my depression. And for me, my anxiety, I can get a grip on it. So to me, the avenue of fun that comes with jump rope, that's what keeps me doing it, is that it's fun. It makes me feel good too. And I, you know, stay in shape, but the fact that I can do that, it really does help tamper the anxiety side of it. So I know that was a long detour.
No, that's
from it.
That's good, man. I mean, anything like that, I wouldn't expect anything less than a deep discussion about something that, for lack of better words, that traumatic, and something that something that happens in your life of that magnitude, and the
Yeah.
fact that you're comfortable enough in your own skin to share it, and then to encourage other men to check themselves and to go see a doctor, that there's no shame in that.
Mhm.
That's all, for one, it's very courageous of you, and two, it all falls in under the health and fitness sphere, which is important. And so it's
Yeah.
not just about the jump rope. It's about jump rope is a great thing, but it's really about making sure you have your health and fitness under control.
Yeah. And just to for guys, if you think something's wrong, go see a doctor. It could, for one, be nothing. My brother had a, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this on on a podcast. He had a soreness. He went and got it checked out. It was something else. It was nothing. Got it
Good,
taken care of.
good.
Even if it is something, you want to take care of that now before it becomes something worse. But even in my case, yes, I am one testicle shorter than I used to be, but I have a son who was
Yeah.
conceived after I did this. So no trouble there at all.
Yeah.
And if anything, probably, we didn't try hard at all to have this kid. Us Lane boys are very, very, very fertile. But I guess now it's concentrate. Whenever I told my parents that we were having a baby, my dad goes, "Attaboy, lefty." Like,
oh, jeez, man, that's wild.
I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah,
But
good humor on that though. But like you
you
were
gotta,
saying, sometimes you just have to. Humor is probably the good way to assuage the what's going on,
yeah,
and a good way to
absolutely.
get through it. Yeah, man. So the meditation, we talked about meditation a little earlier. It's a great tool. So how do you do that? Just two questions. Do you do that on your own outside of jump rope, and how do you apply it during your jump rope sessions?
Yeah, I've never actually taken like an actual meditation course from like another person, as far as like going to a TM center or something like that. I looked at all kinds of tutorials and things like that online, and I hadn't found much that worked for me until I read a book by Dan Harris called Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics, which is what I was. And he kind of puts it in a very sarcastic, are you looking for a meditation manual that's not woo-woo and talking about auras and, sitting on a mountainside, meditation for people with day jobs, basically, and that kind of got me into it. But I was surprised at how simple it is, because people talk about meditation like it's something you got to go learn from a guru on a mountain top, and it's really not. It's mostly about training your mind to be able to be completely present in the moment. Like if you were to just close your eyes and breathe through your nose and just focus on how that breath feels going into your nostrils and out, and trying to just not even think about it, but rather just to feel the raw data of that and locking into the present moment. Once you do that, you're going to notice that your brain immediately mutinies and goes, okay, that's cool. Okay, that's warm. Okay, that's cool. I wonder what I'm going to have for lunch. I wonder, did I leave the garage door open? That's totally normal. But the point of it is not to stay concentrating on that, but to notice whenever you're thinking and to go, I'm thinking right now, or my brain, the monkey in the attic is going crazy because I'm not giving him a banana, and to go, I don't have to listen to that. I can be here right now. I can be present, and the present moment, and this is especially good for people with anxiety, I've noticed, is because no matter how much anxiety you have about the future, am I going to lose my job, or am I just not going to get that raise? Is that bad thing going to happen? Or, whenever you have anxiety about something in the future, you're basically time traveling in the worst time machine ever that wants you to fail. But whenever you are able to to tap into the present moment and realize that that's what you're thinking, then you can start to take control little by little. It's not going to come easy at first because it's completely unnatural to go, oh, I'm thinking. I'm not present right now. I'm in the future. I'm dreading that or worrying about something. Or if you're depressed, a lot of that is I'm dwelling on the past. I'm ruminating about the past. I'm agonizing about the past. When you're not present, you're not in the moment. You're not with your cat who's, just waking up, I guess.
Yeah.
But you'll notice that the present moment is actually, unless you're just like actively in pain, the present moment is usually pretty nice. You're either in your house or you're at your job or you're not quite in pain and things are good, or you're with people that you love, or you're doing something you enjoy. And I think jump rope is a good way to, sometimes I do listen to music and sometimes I do listen to podcasts while I do it. But a lot of the time when I jump rope, I like to not be listening to something other than the swoosh of those 5mm PVCs going around my head, and just have the snap of it on the driveway or the mat. I've been jumping with mats lately. I know we were talking about that. Just the raw data of that whoo, 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 and that snap and jumping and being completely present. And if your mind starts to wander to something you're worrying about, just bring it back to that whoo, whoo, whoo. That sound is more like a weighted jump rope. The other ones are more like
yeah. But you're right though. You're exactly right. What you were saying, man, there's nothing greater than the present moment. And what you were saying earlier reminds me of the Tao Te Ching, the Lao Tzu quote. It's right. If you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. If you're at peace, you're living in the present. That's one of my favorite quotes because it's absolutely true. You start feeling anxious, you're normally thinking about things. And then like Tom Petty says, most things I worry about never happen anyway. You're thinking about things that are probably not going to happen. They're never going to materialize. And then the past, there's nothing you can do about it. It's there. The only thing you can do is learn from it. Yeah.
Right. Then you can get deep into stoicism too, if you ever wanted to. I know you're a Ryan Holiday fan like me.
Oh yeah. Ryan Holiday's great. There's been, I think that another guy that it's not released yet that I recorded a couple nights ago, he's mentioned Ryan Holiday. Dave Hunt mentioned Ryan Holiday. He's a lot more popular than I thought within the community of people who jump rope as well. Yeah.
Yeah. What's funny about Ryan Holiday is that he's not saying anything new. Like all the wisdom he brings about is what, 3,000, 4,000 years old. It's thousands of years old.
Yeah, at least.
What he's good at is translating it into the speak of the Gen Xer, the millennial, and what we can understand. Maybe even Gen Y. Gen Y is millennial. Never mind. That's Gen Z. Okay.
There's so many of them. I get confused too. Yeah. I don't even know what I am other than a millennial.
Yeah. I think it's like what, if you're born before 82 to like 90 or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
But he just translated it. But Stoicism is basically locking in it. Part of it has to do with being in the present, but part of it is strengthening yourself to endure what life throws at you, and realizing that most of the time you're worrying about things that either won't happen or things that don't matter, or things that you've been taught you should worry about, and then now you're like, this really is silly to be worrying about.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Yeah, you're right, man. That's one of I think there's so many good philosophies out there, but I was going through a time a couple of years ago where I got put in a job that I shouldn't have gotten put in the military, and there was no other choice. And that's when I found Ryan Holiday and Stoicism, and just listening to Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and Epictetus, those main three, and listening to their quotes and their books. That's what got me through it and helped me realize that most things in life you don't control, but what you do control is how you respond. And that makes all the difference. How you respond makes all the difference.
Yeah, that's the main thing I was trying to get with stoicism. You said it a lot better than I did.
Oh, no.
You only control what you can control,
Yeah.
and don't worry about what you can't. There's no use in it. So
Exactly. You got to be indifferent. You got to be indifferent to those things. And it doesn't mean that you're just giving up. It just means that it's the strategy of at what point do I need to be indifferent to this, because caring about it is just not going to make any difference, or any difference it does make is marginal.
Right. So you have to recommend Ego is the Enemy.
Oh, great book.
What was it? The other one, The Obstacle is the Way.
Yep. Obstacle is the Way.
And Stillness is the Key.
Yeah,
that's the holy trinity there for Ryan Holiday stoicism books. He's come out with a couple other ones, but those are like the big ones.
Have you read all three of those?
I've read the first two. I got like halfway through Stillness is the Key, and life happened. But those two, Ego is the Enemy. Man, that is. I mean, they're both of those are huge game changers. But I think Ego is the Enemy is just like, a lot of the time you're going after some kind of fame or some kind of status or something that's not really going to serve you. You don't really want it, but you don't know that you don't want it. And it's been a while since I've read that one, but it definitely was like it's a humbling book. It's like it's in your best interest to be a humble person. So that's kind of one of the big takeaways I took from it.
It is. That's a great one. That's the only one of his I read, I'm ashamed to say, but that one had a great impact on me. That's a book where there's a lot of books where you just read them once, but that's a book that you can read once every 6 months, once every year, because learning how to control your ego and not let it get the best of you is something that it's a phenomenon that needs constant reminding. It's not something that you just learn once and it's all good. That's something that that's a battle that most people are constantly fighting every day.
Well, no spoiler alert for The Obstacle is the Way, but I read that one. That one's basically about how to make a new path whenever you have something big in your life that's holding you back. And it's been years since I've read it, but I remember recommending it to a friend of mine who was in a tough spot. He was a diabetic and he had just lost a leg.
Oh my gosh.
And he was in a bad spot. Like he was just so depressed. And I recommended it to him and he was like, holy crap, man, this is changing my life. Like every turn of the page was like, he's like, this is exactly what I needed. And he said it was a big turning point for him. So I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, I didn't write that, but more power to Ryan Holiday and all the stoicism that went into that one. So I would recommend that book to anyone who's going through some stuff. That's a really good one to, if there's a boulder in your way, use that as a footstep, type of mentality.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm definitely have picked that one up. So one thing I wanted to know is you were talking about your diet and the email that you sent me. So what does your diet consist of? Do you follow any kind of diet like intermittent fasting or the traditional 3 meals a day? What does that look like for you?
Well, my diet originally started with, I'm an observant Jewish person, and it started with kosher, which kosher is kind of misunderstood in itself. A lot of people are like, you mean like the pickles? But kosher means that things are approved according to the laws that are in the Torah, which are the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, I guess. But that mostly talks about which species you can eat, like no pigs, no shellfish, no bottom feeders, essentially. And then the things that you can eat, like the cows and deer and the kosher species of birds, those all have to be slaughtered in a very specific way to minimize pain. So like, for instance, a cow is slaughtered with a knife that is razor sharp. It's like a surgeon's scalpel, and it's they're like the size of swords. But and the butcher, he checks it on his nail between no nicks in the blade. And from what I hear, it's like almost a painless cut. I don't know if you've ever like cut yourself with a paper cut or a really sharp knife and you're just bleeding everywhere before you feel it, you're like, oh my gosh, where did that happen? You know, that's kind of the vibe. Anyways, long story short with that, I was trying to find kosher meat where I live in Oklahoma. There's not a very big observant Jewish population, so there's not a lot of people buying up kosher meat, so it's really hard to find. And that kind of led me at first to just like, okay, I guess I'm a pescatarian, you know, I eat fish and because fish, the slaughtering laws are a lot more lax than with, I don't know, animals that can scream, I guess. But so I'm pretty much a pescatarian, but I'm also like a lactose intolerant pescatarian. So that almost, and I've been losing my taste for fish as much lately because, you know, you can only eat so much salmon before you're sick of it.
I know, that's right.
So I'm pretty much a vegetarian who is I'll consume dairy and I eat my weight in eggs, but that's kind of how I've gone about it, and my wife as well, and our son. But she's an amazing cook. I'm very blessed to have a wife who can just tear up a kitchen.
Yeah, I'm in the same category as you, man. It's
married up,
a real blessing. Yeah.
and that we eat the same stuff too. What's funny nowadays is that my son he's had a little bit of chicken in life, like kosher chicken. And it's funny, but if you put it in front of him, he won't eat it because he doesn't really know what it is. But if you tell him it's tofu, he's like, oh yeah, cool. Yeah, I'll eat that.
Oh, nice.
It's the opposite problem that most parents would have. I do intermittent fast. Picked up this really cool book by this guy named, I think his name's Jude. No, I'm kidding. I did read
that up. Oh, yeah, nice.
I did read your book on that. It's very informative. Really nice short read for people that are looking for a good book on just getting started with intermittent fasting without all the information you need and none of all the stuff you don't. So
I'm glad you liked it. Thank you.
I'm plugging that.
I appreciate it, man.
You can get that on Amazon.
Yeah, and it's over there on Amazon. Yep. Just like all the other inventory in the world.
Yeah, you can read it in like 30 minutes to an hour. It's really, really a good start into that. And I didn't know as much about trans fats until I started reading your book on hydrogenated oils and stuff like that.
Yeah, man.
And how much of a game changer that can be.
Oh yeah, that's huge, man. The trans fats. If we had another hour, we could probably talk about trans fats for another hour, but maybe we can have another one where we just talk about that. But yeah, those are a lot of people don't know about that stuff and how harmful they are.
Yeah, and what to look for, because it might not even say trans fats in it. You just have to look at the ingredients, and exactly. If you see hydrogenated oils or hydrogenated ingredients. But yeah, I intermittent fast. That basically just means skipping breakfast, which is so funny. For so long, I grew up, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and you get to be older, and you're like, but is it? Like, don't get me wrong, I eat breakfast, but I'll eat it at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, man.
And call it lunch.
Yeah, dude. It's I think Dave Hunt was talking about this too on his podcast. It's just, you get older and you start to, it's a perfect example of just questioning conventional beliefs and knowing what to question. And just wondering, where does this even come from? Is there any evidence to back this up? And then applying that to other things in your life too, it ends up making good for better decisions.
Well, my friends always joke with me that I like to take the path less traveled. Like, it's almost a hobby of mine to kind of try and do things the weird way first. Like I wasn't raised Jewish. I found it later and converted, and all my friends are like, okay, weirdo. And there's a lot of things like, oh, you jump rope. Yeah. Ken had to go find the weird fitness activity and be the weird guy doing it too. And you know, things like that. Also, you're asking me about my shoes and stuff too. My shoes make me a weirdo too about, you know, all this barefoot stuff, but I think there is a lot to be said for just trying out and being open-minded about stuff, questioning common norms and finding what works for you. And even if it makes you weird, if it makes you happy, who cares?
Man, couldn't have said it better. Couldn't have said it better. You got to go out there and try new things and not. I think Tom Bilyeu says it the best. He's like, don't let your beliefs become calcified in dogma. And
Right.
Thoughts just because people said it was true, and where did they get the information from? So it's always
Right.
good to question.
I remember my brother, his term in the Navy was almost up. And I live in Tulsa. My parents live like 30 minutes outside of Tulsa. And I grew up in this area, and I've traveled to other places, and I found that I really do like this area. But I'm like, oh, so you're going to move back to Tulsa? And he was like, well, I'm going to go look at some other cities, see what they're like. And I'm like, but Tulsa's where we're from. And then I remember he goes, dude, it only takes one generation to change where you're from.
Yeah.
And as far as not just moving places, but like what you're about, like you can be flexible. You can choose to be about other stuff. You can try just a new way of life, find what fits. Because, you know, what your parents raised you in isn't always what fits. It doesn't mean that like they did a bad job. And if anything, I think your parents should be raising you to be open-minded and try new things. I feel very blessed that was my case, and my folks supported all of my exploratory decisions as long as they weren't self-destructive or harming others. But yeah, try new things.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better, man. This has been a great conversation. The time, it seems like we just started talking 10 minutes ago. It's already been an hour. It's already been an hour and a half, man. So
has it?
Yeah, not an hour and a half, hour and 5 minutes. Sorry. I saw the 5 and then I thought of 0.5. Yeah, I saw 8.08 and then :05 and thought it was like 0.5. So
we didn't start on time, so that's all right.
Yeah, it started because I couldn't get the dang volume right. I'm still trying to figure out this microphone. I think it sounds good, but
technology,
the more complex you have, the more complexity you introduce, the harder it can be to operate the equipment. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, the catch-all question. What is your advice to people who have started with jump rope or any physical fitness activity, and they came from background that you were coming from, where they were previously sedentary and they're struggling to start, or they're just starting off? What would you tell them?
I would tell them to follow the fun.
Yeah.
Think about what it is that you did when you were a kid, or what you could do now, but take a second to think about, what did I do when I was a kid that got my blood pumping, got me breathing? You know, you don't think about it when you're a kid. You can run around all day and never even know what your heart rate is. But what is something active that you did when you were a kid that was fun, like genuinely fun, and that you can start to kind of do now? It's probably going to really whoop you for a while, but follow the fun, or else you're not going to want to do it. It's going to be a chore. Instead of something you get to do, it's going to be something you have to do. So that's what it was, jump rope for me. I remember how much fun I had doing it when I was a kid. And that's why I was so anxious to pick it up again and look like I was training for a prize fight in my driveway. Even though, man, I would lose that quickly. But
I would too, man. Yeah.
I was just following that fun and make sure it's fun and do what is fun. Because as far as like the exercises I do, I remember when I first got into jump rope, I was also like, okay, well, also I need to start doing this type of exercise and that type of exercise. Now I'm a fitness guy, and I was having no fun. And I go, I'm just going to go back to what I know was fun, and that's jump rope and different types of jump rope, things that challenge me. So yeah, anyone who's in a sedentary, like I've been thinking about writing a book called Jump Rope for the Flabby and Easily Winded.
That's a good title.
I think so. Well, I was kind of stealing from like Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics, but it's like that side of it. But I was flabby and easily winded, and I didn't like the way fitness coaches would talk. It didn't resonate to like, come on guys, let's do it. You're almost there. Like that did not I'm like, shut up. Like I'm trying to eat some chips, man. I'm like, but if somebody spoke to me like another fat friend who's like, dude, just follow some fun stuff to do. It's going to suck, but your body's going to be confused. It's not going to know what the hell you're trying to do to it. But over time, your body's going to love you for it. it's going to be like, okay, this is fun and I'm feeling better and I'm finally moving around. So I don't know. I'd say follow the fun.
That's great. I've never heard it put that way before. The great thing about this podcast that I didn't really foresee happening was every time that question comes up, people have something different, and it's something I've never heard of before. And everything has been great advice. I mean, it'd be a spin-off of something I've heard before, but everyone has their own way of articulating their advice, and it's been outstanding every single time. That was awesome. You gotta going back to your childhood and thinking about maybe playing on the playground or doing the monkey bars. There's nothing stopping you from doing that as an adult either.
There's adult versions of all those things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Especially, I think modern fitness industry has capitalized on that. I think, CrossFit, it's almost just like when you look at some of the stuff in there, like this is kind of a playground in here. I mean, I don't do CrossFit. I can't speak to it at all, but to me, whenever I see a big tire and some monkey bars, I'm like, oh, that looks like the playground when I was a kid.
Yeah, I know. And people doing handstands and stuff. It's amazing. Yeah. And I mean, I can't do one of those. And I know it takes people so long to be able to do that. And that's something that as a kid, I saw people doing it all the time when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old, and it was nothing.
Yeah.
To them.
Yeah. I've actually wanted to strap my, my fitness tracker to my son's almost 3, so it wouldn't fit on, it might fit on his ankle or something like that. And I just want to see how many steps that kid gets in a day.
Oh man.
It's unreal. Like if I'm actually in like a fitness competition for work right now where they just do it on step counting. And on an off day, I'm like tempted to just put my watch on his ankle. And they're like, you did 30,000 steps today,
Yeah.
Because the kid's everywhere. And we were as kids and it was fun. We didn't think about it as exercise. So I think if we just follow that again, then we can get back there.
No, I agree with you, man. I agree with you. That was awesome. And I hope that people listen and follow that advice because that's great advice. And I'm going to follow it and continue to follow that advice. Ken, hey, man, I really appreciate you sharing your story and your wisdom and your knowledge here today. I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. If anyone wants to, got a blog, thekenlane.com.
Yeah.
You can check it out. If you like it, cool. If you don't, whatever. But always open to new friends.
Yeah, and I'll put your website and blog in the show notes so that people know how to contact you. They can listen to some of your episodes. Those short episodes are really cool. I've listened to a couple of them. They're a great way to start the day with some positivity or to end the day off with some positivity or in the middle of the day for some good positive thinking. So thanks a lot, Ken. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Have a good one.
Ken, for taking the time to be on this podcast. I really appreciate you having the courage and the openness to share your struggle and your bout with cancer and to impart knowledge and wisdom onto people and awareness onto people who may be struggling with some of the same things that you talked about in this episode. That was very courageous of you, and I appreciate you taking the time to do that for the betterment of humanity. If you want to check Ken out, you can go to his website, thekenlane.com. You can also subscribe to his new YouTube channel. It's called Barefoot Ken, where he jumps rope and does some tutorials. He's got a few videos up there as well, so check him out and give him some support. Much respect to Ken for coming on to the podcast. I appreciate it. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, jump rope to freedom. Peace, everybody. Thanks for your support.